Is inclusivity integrated or a tag-on in what you've been taught?
So I think with my degree, at least, because I study law, it's one of those things where it can often feel like a tag-on due to the nature of the course, because there's 7 compulsory modules. I'm in my second year, I'm still studying things that I sort of am obligated to study for it to be an LLB. But that doesn't mean that the tag-ons aren't necessarily not thought through. I don't necessarily think it's an intentional afterthought, but more the fact that the course is very much a heavy reading course, very much by its nature, very academic, and sometimes it can feel like you're the only disabled student in that course because you're with peers that are very much on the grind and working really hard 24/7, and it's quite competitive at times in terms of the way that it's sort of framed by certain lecturers in terms of showing grades and stuff, and being like, this is the average grade of the class, or releasing them. It can feel a bit sort of disheartening when you can't keep up at an average person's pace, because obviously it can seem a little bit unaccessible and uninclusive. I think the main example I can give is with reading lists. I have in my support plan directed reading as a sort of a compulsory measure, and that's all well and good, but when you've got about 30 to 40 books per module and you've got 5 modules and they're all sort of deemed in the higher importance in the sort of given directed reading in terms of like these are the most important or the key sort of text or cases, it can still be quite overwhelming.
Many universities are beginning to move towards having learning as a collaborative experience where students play an active role in what is being taught. How important do you think this is?
I think it's extremely important. I really do. I've had a module this year where it was sort of a overarching module of law and social justice, but within that there was pathways, so you could choose the specific sort of lens that you looked at it. And I did one on equal pay, which was really interesting. But in the first sort of lecture with the sort of equal pay professor, she basically asked us what we wanted to include in some of our learning, because she was new to the school and was able to sort of create the module for us as we were going along. I often engage more when I've been collaborated with, and therefore I enjoy the module more. I feel like I'm able to give more to it, and I'm not just regurgitating other people's opinions and sort of critiquing them for the sake of critiquing them. And I think that makes me a better student when I've had that collaborative experience.
What's your preferred way of being assessed in university and why?
So through things that are like MCQs, which are multiple choice exams. Partly from the MCQ point of view, even though it is multiple choice, and that often might not seem like very indicative of like proper essay writing graph, there's a lot of research behind it, and therefore I'm using, and the ones that I've had at least have been open book, have been online, and it seems more reflective of how you would work in sort of the real world. It's very rare that you would be expected to just know something off the top of your head. For me, as somebody that struggles to write for extended amounts of time, I find them quite a rewarding way of quickly getting through an assessment that's not going to mentally drain myself. Although I would say that there has been times with multiple choice exams where my module coordinators haven't been as sort of willing to give me extra time, even though the circumstances were that you only had one shot at it. I feel like when you only get one shot at it and you've got a limited amount of time on it and you can't repeat it, it's the same as a normal exam. And if I'm having a bad day, I'm going to have a bad day regardless of whether I'm just clicking a button or whether I'm writing. So therefore, I feel like the need for lack of judgment in assessments, and while it might not seem feasible to your able-bodied module coordinator that's an expert in the subject that you're doing your exam for, it's really important to just let students find their own way. I think when it comes to inclusivity in education, a lot of it is just a major cultural shift, at least from disability point of views. If you think that Disability Rights Act only came in 1995, isn't this a relatively new piece of legislation? And therefore, there will be people that are sort of very well-meaning, but not necessarily the most inclusive in their teaching. And I think there's almost an expectation that there's a lot of groundwork that the student has to do in this university. So you have to ask for your sort of coursework extensions. You have to liaise with your note takers that are externally funded at this university. You have to sort of make sure that everything matches up, and it's a lot of extra brain power to sort of organise the logistics of university.